Sober Sex, Plastic Silverware, and Losing My Religion. Let's talk about the latest episode of The Connors. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to the Connors review for episode 3 of the 4th season, Sober Sex, Plastic Silverware, and Losing My Religion. If you are new to Dan Reviews It, thank you for finding this video. Please consider subscribing down below there or commenting as well. Of course, that helps the channel out, and I love interacting with the Connors fans. So let's hear your thoughts on this episode as well. So, let's go backwards sort of with the order of the title. Losing My Religion, well, this is sort of just a portion of the last episode that's carried over. We do see Jason Alexander again as the pastor for one scene here, and Darlene goes to him and explains why she ran out of the church in the last episode, and he says, look, you don't have to necessarily find your higher power at a church, find what works for you. So she decides that cozying up to Louise, who will, of course, be her stepmother in next week's episode with the wedding, she decides that is a good way to sort of get some input from someone with some experience, someone a little older, about life. And obviously Darlene is going through her own sort of non-wedding crisis, as she proposed to Ben and got turned down. So here we are. Ben, by the way, J.R. Ferguson does not appear in this episode, nor does Michael Fishman or Jaden Ray. Of course, they're almost always absent from episodes. However, Michael Fishman directed this episode, and he did a real good job last season with his directing, and I think he did a pretty good job here too. I think the script went a little too fast sometimes. Like, some of the scenes were only like 30 or 40 seconds. Like, it was 5-6 lines, and then we moved right to the next scene. I don't necessarily think that was his fault. I think that was part of the script, but I did feel this episode was a little bit rushed in some of the scenes. But other than that, I do think he's actually got a pretty good eye for directing, much better than he is an actor. I think he could have a future in directing. So we'll see. Last season they just, I think, let him do the one. This season, maybe he'll do more than that. I'm not sure, but it is kind of nice, that he's still involved in some way with the show. But yeah, the character, as we talk about all the time here, is sort of useless at this point. But I understand them still wanting him to be there. But I think he did a good job. But anyway, so that's sort of the Losing My Religion part. It's only that one scene with Jason Alexander. But moving backwards from that, the Plastic Silverware has to do then with Louise and Darlene anyway. So let's continue on that path. So Darlene wants to really throw herself into helping Louise with the wedding. Louise is already getting tips and advice and help from Mark, who, makes total sense. He's, a little gay boy, and so he's going to help her with some of the, picking of the dress and other accoutrements of the wedding. But Darlene's ideas are more for her. She wants to do some kind of vegetarian Ethiopian dinner for the wedding, and obviously that's not Louise. So she ends up lying to Darlene and saying, well, I already picked the wedding dress, so, I don't need your help there. But she takes Mark and Harris with her to get the wedding dress, and Harris posted on Instagram, so Darlene gets super pissed. So by the end of the episode, they not only make up, but both are kind of apologizing to each other. Louise apologizes for lying. Darlene apologizes once she realizes, through her father, of course, Dan, voice of reason as always, says, look, this is not your wedding. Do you actually understand that? And he was very nice about it and very calm. But, she was, I think in this episode, Darlene was kind of, taking things too personally, taking things a little too far. And to us as the viewer, it's pretty clear that she's only, trying to convey what she wanted for her own wedding onto Louise. But of course, as the character, she didn't quite realize that. So it was kind of a nice moment towards the end there, where they decided, okay, let's just, talk about all of our toxic baggage. You're about to be in my life even more once you marry my father, so let's talk about that. And the ghost of Roseanne again looming large here in this episode, because we of course discussed that with Jason Alexander's character at the church as a holdover from last week, but then also, with Louise and going through, okay, well, here's what my dad and my mom did, and Jackie was sort of on that same tip. Well, Roseanne, did it this way. And look, Louise obviously is, never going to necessarily compete with Roseanne. I mean, that was a 40 plus year marriage, almost 50-year marriage, I guess, that Dan had with her. So obviously that's never going to be, she's never going to compare to that. And so she obviously isn't trying to. She's trying to, do her own thing and be her own person. And she is pretty different from Roseanne, to be honest. And I think that's actually why her character works so well. I think, if Dan had picked somebody that was too similar to Roseanne, perhaps that would have been realistic. I don't know. I'm not sure if people that have gone through that go for someone similar because it's what they're used to, but I think it was smart of the writers to make Louise a very different character, and I love the way she sort of worked herself in through the seasons. I mean, I don't think she was in season 1 of the Connors until maybe the end. But then, they've had this on again, off again for the last couple of seasons, and then finally by the end of season 3, the proposal. But, she started out, just as Becky's boss at the restaurant. And, of course, she knew Dan from way back when, and Roseanne and Jackie. So, yeah, I just, as sort of an aside from this episode, I really like the way that the Louise character has progressed through this series. It's been pretty cool to see. So, anyway, that's sort of the whole thing there. And then with Sober Sex, that's the other sort of A story of this. And that is Becky going through her list of the 12 steps, and she is up to amends. So she is trying to come clean to some people that maybe she has hurt or that she has wronged. And one of those is Mikey, the gentleman that we met and first heard of last season. She went out to dinner with him and made up this whole story about how successful she is and what a college graduate and all of that. But, of course, that was not true. So he is on her list, and she invites him over for lunch. And when he gets there, she's like, I can't do this. I wrote you a letter instead because I just, I really value your friendship, and I would like to, not have to go through the embarrassment. And he said, look, this is fine. I want to hear about it. We're friends. No judgment. So she takes him to the lunchbox, and they start talking about sex and how terrified she is to have sober sex for basically the first time. I think she was probably sober when she had sex with her ex-husband Mark originally, but she was like 16 or something. So this was obviously a long time ago. So she's nervous. She hasn't had sober sex in a long, long time. And he agrees to go with her, by the way, to Dan and Louise's wedding, too. He's like, hey, if you need a friend, I'm here. But as an aside, before we get back to this story, what has happened to her baby and Emilio? They have not factored into this season yet. We're in episode 3 now, and they haven't factored in. Maybe because she went to rehab. Am I forgetting something that happened in the last season? Like, has he taken her and, little Beverly Rose is living with the abuelas? Let me know in the comments if I'm forgetting something, because I really only watched these episodes once through. So it's been about, 6 months probably since we've had the season finale. So I don't quite remember. But I thought of that when they were at the lunchbox, and he was like, oh, I'll be your date to the wedding. I just thought... there was something with Emilio. I know they sort of he wanted her back, and Becky said no. I remember that, but what happened to the baby? I don't know. But in any event, so she decides to take this Mikey up on his offer to have sex with her when they're both sober, so she can kind of get it out of her system and learn, what she feels is right and how to do it and whatever. I didn't really love this storyline. I got to be completely honest, and I'm certainly no prude. There've been several times in my life that I have certainly had sex with people that were just friends, and we remained friends, and everything was great. Um, the Connors reviews always bring out my truths here. But listen. So I'm not a prude. I'm not offended by the subject matter necessarily, but it just seemed all a bit odd. He reveals to her at the end of it, by the way, they're still at the hotel room. He's like, I got to tell you, I've had a crush on you since high school. I still have a crush on you, and X, Y, and Z. And she's like, look, dude, that's very nice, but I'm in AA. Like, we're not supposed to have relationships for at least a year, because if it ends, we could go back to the bottle. And she expresses that. And of course, he's like, well, I don't want that at all. But hey, the roll in the hay was great. I just, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was in Becky's character. Just because, look, I know she's certainly gotten around the block. That's been a running joke all throughout this revival that she's a bit of a hoe, and that's fine. But I don't know. It just seemed very forced and sort of very like for somebody in recovery to just sort of say like, sure, let's do this. Right now, drop of a hat. It just doesn't seem to go hand in hand with these 12 steps and the recovery process. Like, obviously, she wasn't drinking, so it's not like she fell off the wagon in that way, but I'm not sure. This storyline just really rubbed me the wrong way. And I like this Mikey. I mean, if they do end up together, or if he ends up just being a recurring character or something, I'd be fine with that. I really do like him, and I hope he does escort her to the wedding next week. But yeah, the theme of that of the let's have the sober sex, just I don't know, it didn't feel good for me watching it. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how other people felt about that. And like I said, I'm certainly no prude in that department. But just for somebody in recovery and for this specific character, I don't know. I really am unsure how I feel about it. I will say that most of the humor in this episode came from Aunt Jackie. The little bitty side story there was that her and Darlene were taste testing alcohol for the new style of the lunchbox, which is going to be a Chicago Bears, kind of sports bar. So they were sort of testing that out. Drunk Jackie is always a blast, I think. She always brings the funny. Drunk Jackie or High Jackie. Remember that episode of Roseanne where they found the weed and smoked it? And she was great in that as well. But one thing that, again, sort of rubbed me the wrong way here, they find out that Harris is at the dress store with Louise, and they're like, well, we got to get down there. Let's go. I wish there would have been some sort of line in there about let's get an Uber or let's call a cab or something, because Jackie was very drunk, so I assume, she didn't drive, but Darlene was also drinking. So in an episode where we're looking at the 12 steps of recovery and we're all about, helping this person who is an alcoholic, driving drunk, I don't know. I mean, maybe there was just a throwaway line that I missed about let's grab an Uber or something, but like, I just thought, are these women going to drive all the way to the dress store completely blotto? Like, it just was not, I don't know. A lot of things in this episode were just like not hitting me right. But anyway, so there was some humor there. And I think the funniest line in the episode comes right at the beginning from Dan, when Becky and Darlene are sort of jabbing back and forth at each other. And Dan was like, oh, this was real cute when you were kids. Now you're just a couple of old spinsters, fighting. I just thought that was so funny and applicable here. So I liked that line a lot. But yeah, so there was some humor, but not really with any of the main plot lines. I didn't get any laughs out of the casual sex storyline, and I didn't really out of the dress shopping either. Maybe a line here or two with Harris really enjoying the look of that black dress, while she's trying to slam marriage for, being a horrible institution, but she's like, oh, but I'll wear this, that was kind of funny. But for the most part, I think most of the laughs came from sort of a lot of the stuff on the side and not the main plot. So overall, this was certainly a mixed bag of an episode for me, a downgrade from the first couple of the season. I'm going to leave Sober Sex, Plastic Silverware, and Losing My Religion with a B minus. And to be honest, I think that's actually kind of generous. The only reason I didn't give it a C plus was because of that great scene with Jackie being drunk. Got me a lot of laughs there. But and I do like that Louise and Darlene are bonding. I like that too. But there were a lot of things in this episode I just kind of was like, I'm not sure that this is a good idea or whatever. So that's how I feel. But in terms of Michael Fishman's directing, I do think, like I said, he did a pretty good job with the script they had for him. But I do think some of those scenes were very rushed, about 5, 6, 7 lines, and then the scene is over. They still need to somehow find that balance in some of these episodes. Going from the old days of a 25-minute episode to the current, 21 and a half minutes. So I don't know, maybe they could excise some scenes entirely and, tack on whatever that information is onto a different scene. I don't know, but sometimes it feels like whiplash when it's like, oh, the scene's over already after about 35 seconds. But all right, so that's going to do it. Thank you for watching. Please comment below because, like I said, I'm real curious how this episode hit you guys. What did you think? So let me know. We'll be back next week. There's another new episode. It's going to be the wedding episode, which are always usually pretty fun in the world of the Connors. So we'll check that out next week, and we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.